All right, good day, gents, and welcome to another episode of Father's Fire. My name's Jody Cedric, and every week we get together to explore the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows, and yes, the fun of being a dad. And I tell you, last week's episode has gotten such a great response. It's been fun. As you guys know, I sat down with my son, and it was interesting because as we sat down together, he's like, yeah, Dad, I'm really looking forward to being a dad. And that led to a whole conversation about creating his own business and what he expected about having kids and what he hoped for. And then we got talking about some of his friends and his view of them being crappy boyfriends and him telling the girls that if they're crappy boyfriends, they're going to be crappy husbands. And it's been fun because I've gotten so much comments on that episode, and in particular his comment. And so I actually reached out to Paul Appolonia. He's my guest. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, hello.
Hello. So Paul actually record an episode with me, and it was funny because after we got done, he goes, that would have been a great podcast. So, Paul, thank you so much. So, before we jump into my questions for you, tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Sure. Real quick, I'm in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. We moved here in 1993 from the Philadelphia area, born and raised up there. Came down here on an IT contract. We had children way late in life. Didn't have kids until probably 15 years into our marriage. We adopted our first child from Guatemala in 1998. That's my son, Paul. He's now 24. I can't remember these ages, to be honest with you, sometimes. And we adopted our daughter 2 years later from Guatemala in 2000. And she's 21 right now.
That's awesome. So
yep.
that gives us a lot of fun stuff to talk about. But let's start off with your comment, because I shared a little segment of my conversation with my son, and I just loved that he was so candid with his friends. He's like, look, man, you guys are being crappy boyfriends. It doesn't take that much to invest some time and a little bit of attention into your lady. And he, in the same breath, said, yeah, I told their girlfriends that they were going to be crappy husbands if they're crappy boyfriends. So, and you commented. So let's talk about your comment on that. So.
Sure. Well, I've been married 39 years in about 2 weeks. So, many moons ago, before we got married, my childhood wasn't the greatest. Parent situation was just messed up. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom had issues, and my brother had issues. I don't know how I got out of this thing normal, I guess. And I was over at my parents' house with my wife, and I wasn't acting really nice to my mother, kind of yelling at her. And my wife pulled me outside, and she goes, this will stop right now, or we have going to have big issues with going further. Because how a man treats his mother is how they're going to treat their wife. And I'm like, oh, crap. She might be right. So I quickly toned that down big time. Like I said in my post, I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes every once in a while. My kids say I do yell a lot. I think I talk loud, but whatever. But that is really, and I do believe her in that. I really think you need to look at, obviously, if you're a girl or a young lady, you need to look at how your significant other is treating his mom, because that's how he's going to treat you. I truly believe that. I truly believe she was right on that.
So how did you, obviously you were humble enough to receive it, right? And because I think a lot of times we as men, our significant other, our girlfriend, our wife, they come to us and say, look, that is not acceptable, right? And a lot of us men feel henpecked, we feel disrespected, we don't feel like our voice is being heard. So what enabled you to receive that admonition from your now wife?
Well, we pretty much, tell each other how we feel. Well, she tells me how she feels. Being a man, it's hard to tell my feelings sometimes, as many of us know. I try and take things as good advice when she's telling me that I'm misbehaving or something like that. So I just really try and get a handle on stuff like that, because most of the time she's right, to be honest with you, when I'm messing up. So, it's just.
So I take it from your earlier comments about being raised in a home where you had not the best situation. Your father was an alcoholic, your mom had her issues, and it sounds like, and I'm inferring here, so correct me if I'm
Go
wrong,
ahead.
that you may have been in a very loud home, that where tempers were raised, voices were raised, people were short with each other. And so that set a stage for you to kind of model that same thing. How did you wrestle with that as a young man, and how have you tempered that characteristic in yourself now that you've had your own kids and married?
Okay, well, honestly, my earliest recollection of this was I must have been in first or second grade, because I remember sitting at the table eating a snack after school in my little Catholic school uniform, because I went to Catholic school from first to fourth grade. That's a whole other story. But and my parents were acting up, and I just said to myself, I'm never going to live like this. When I get older, I'm not going to have a house like this. And my wife came from like similar loud house, but not with the alcoholic and stuff like that. She was very loud, very demeaning home, and she said the same thing too when she was young. And it's a struggle sometimes. I'm having some challenges right now with with my kids, like we always do every once in a while. But I'm just trying to deal with it the best I can without bringing back those things I grew up with.
Yeah, I love the fact that you at a very young age said, I'm not going to have this in my home.
Right.
And I think a lot of men struggle, and they I hate to say make the excuse, but they do fall back on the story with, man, I had a crappy home, and this has set me up for who I am today, and there's no way that I can change. And there becomes these excuses for not being able to go, you know what, I'm going to break the chain. I'm going to break the cycle of abuse,
Right.
both emotional and alcohol and all of that stuff. And I think a lot of times we get stuck in the head with, I didn't have a good role model, instead of going, at least I know not to model that. And I'm going to do what I would have liked to have experienced as a young man. And I'm going to try to be that kind of dad, as well as look at other men who I respect and be humble enough to go to them and say, man, how are you managing your household? Because, man, I look at it and everything looks great. And they're going to go, well, if you only knew what was happening in the back room.
Yeah. It's years ago, and again, I'm pretty transparent. I was seeing a therapist for a while, dealing with some of this stuff, and towards the end of our session, she looked at me. She goes, your childhood made you into who you are today. You chose to take a bad situation and not continue it. You broke that chain, and like I look at all I've been through. I had an IT career. I left that. That's a whole other story. I should have stayed with that for a little bit longer. Had some money in the bank. As you all know, I got into detailing for a while. I've always provided for my family. And my father always provided for our family. We always had a roof over our head. We always had food on the table. It's not like we were living in the car or something like that. I mean, everything was fine as far as they just weren't present. They just weren't there.
Yeah.
Whatever, emotionally, not physically, but they just weren't there. And I think I didn't realize that until she said that, and that had to be 10 years ago. She said, you're the man you are today because of what you went through, and you're using what you went through to be a better person. And that really touched me. And I think I have that hanging up at my desk or somewhere in the house of of, exactly what she said. It really touched me. And, I'm always like, no, really? No, I need to work on self-confidence. 62, I'm still working on self-confidence. Sometimes I'm like, no, not really. I'm going, no, wait a minute, hang on. Just let's absorb that, and let's not be so negative about ourselves. Let's just let that get in. And it really, and she's right. And my wife said the same thing. You are who you are, because you took a bad situation and turned it into something good. Because, ugh.
Well, and I think a lot of us men, we put off compliments, right? We don't feel like we're worthy of that compliment. But I think that we need to give ourselves some grace. And when a compliment is given, recognize that it really is given from a place of reality, of authenticity, that people are going, you know what? You're a good man. I like who you've become. Yeah, you may have had a crappy start, but you've leveraged that in a way that has enabled you to become a very invested father, a very present father, one that is going, you know what? I know I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to look at those areas that I need to improve and make those micro adjustments that eventually lead me to becoming the man and father that I would like to be.
Right. It like I said, it's a struggle. My son has moved out on his own. I didn't kick him out or anything, and he's doing really well. And like, it's nice to. I didn't make this up. Somebody else did, but I always believe you need to grow wings instead of roots with children. You need to watch them wings sprout and let them fly away, and it feels really good to see him living life, seeing that he even calls me. He called me just now. He's driving up to Philadelphia to see his grandparents at 24. Now, when I was 24, first, things were different back then. You didn't have the relationship you have with your grandparents. When I was a kid, it was kind of like you went to their house, you sat on a plastic covered chair and read the funnies while you waited for dinner, and and you didn't touch anything. And I mean, you didn't touch them, they didn't hug you or anything. You're like my age, I think, and it's just, and today it's just like a different relationship. Like at 24, you're going to drive up to Philadelphia 7 hours to go see your grandparents who are 98 and 99 and are still kicking and living on their own. It's amazing. My wife has longevity on her side. My side, not so much. I'm trying to break that. But did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you did. And I think that says a lot about your family, to have given your adopted children such a strong foundation of love and feeling like they belong, that they not only have a relationship with you, but also the grandparents.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And it's pretty strong too. It's not a fake relationship either. So it's like, well, I think we did a pretty good job here. Again, let me pat myself on the back. Let me just absorb that instead of going, well, I don't know. There was that time when I yelled at him. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah. It's easy to get into the mindset or get stuck in a moment when you weren't at your best as a father. Right. And you and I are at ages now where it's really fun. I mean, your kids are 24 and 21. My two youngest are 21 and my oldest is 29. And it's so fun to watch them step out of our house and start pursuing their dreams and start to see those dreams come to fruition. It's, I always told my kids, I'm like, look, I didn't raise you to nest.
right.
I mean, I raised you to soar. So go amaze me and go take your wings and your dreams and go show me who you can be, because you're going to surprise me.
Well, yeah.
And so I've always wanted to give them the freedom to soar, because, I mean, if they're stuck in my dream, they're never going to become who God intended them to be. So
right.
Go show me. Right? Show me your gifts. Go develop them. Go be an impact on the world with your gifts.
Right. And that's exactly what we are doing with our children too. It's kind of cool. They didn't go to college as much as I wanted them to go to college. It just wasn't for them. And it's not, college isn't for everybody, but whatever. And he's doing really well. He's got a new job now and he likes it. And he's got an apartment he's sharing with another friend of his, and he lives 5 miles away, and I see him maybe once every other week, if that. But you know what? He's living his life. Other people go, well, aren't you upset? Oh, I'd be so upset. I'd be crying when he left. When he moved, I said, you need help? I helped him move into his room. I literally filled my van with his stuff. We went to his room. I carried things in. I said, okay, you done? He goes, yep. I went, because he's old enough to set up his own room and do what he needs to do. I'm not going to fold his underwear for him or anything. I know some people that which is fine. Whatever you want to do is fine. I'm not saying it's wrong. Set up the kid's apartment for him and everything. I'm not going to do that. The kid's a slob as it is, and I wasn't even going to.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned moving your kids, because my third son, Zane, he and his girlfriend are actually packing up this weekend, tomorrow, and they're heading down to Oceanside. And it's pretty fun, because I asked him, I go, do you want me to help you drive down and then I can fly back? He goes, no, Dad, we got this.
Cool.
We got this. And I'm like, that's great. And Mom and Dad always have your back. You always have a place to rest if you need to.
Yes.
But man, go build your life together. So it's really fun to do that. So I'd like to step back, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the adoption, because I think there are a lot of families that have either foster cared or decided to adopt. And just maybe what was your experience doing that, and maybe some challenges that you went through that you were able to overcome?
Well, we chose to adopt. We could have had our own children, but we chose to adopt because we saw there were so many children in need in the world. And we wanted to, we wanted to adopt in this country first, but the challenges were just enormous at the time. I don't know if they're still that bad, but trying to adopt a child here was very difficult. I don't know if it is now. That was 20 some years ago. So we did the international adoption route. It was very expensive, like a new car expensive.
Been there, done that.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we adopted too. So
that's right. And we originally looked at. Now it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter what color the skin is. It doesn't matter where they're from. I love them no matter what they are. And we originally looked at China, and China was at the time you had to go there and then come back and then go there again for 2 weeks. I don't know, where did you adopt your children from? I can't remember. Was it China?
From Haiti.
Okay. And then you had to be there for 2 weeks. And I'm going, ooh, work. And I was working full time. I'm going, I probably could get the time off, but ooh, that's a lot of time off. And then they said, wait, we have a program in Guatemala. It's like a long weekend. I went, oh, okay, that works. So we adopted my son there. We went through the first child, my son, we went through adoption agency, which was more expensive, but they really held your hand through everything, and they got the lawyers for you and everything. And it was a nice introduction to doing adoption, because we knew we wanted to adopt 2 children, but we figured we'd go through the agency first. So we got my son, and it was pretty cool. And everybody goes, well, when did you tell them they were adopted? The second I held them in the hotel room and the person left, and I went, you're adopted, because it's a lot easier saying you're adopted to somebody who really can't respond back to you than once they can ask a question. It's much easier to say, yes, you're adopted, and why you're adopted, and stuff like that. And, they know their whole history and where they're from. So 2 years later, then we did the same thing, but we did it ourselves. We got a lawyer down in Guatemala. There were some challenges involved in that. If I had to do it again, which I really don't want to do it again, 2 is enough, and I'm quite old now. At 62, I don't really want another child. I would do an agency again, to be honest with you, because it just made it a lot easier. It removed a lot of barriers. It was kind of like, okay, sign here, sign there, okay, and what do we do next? I think the biggest question I get asked is, do they know they're adopted? Even when they were little kids, like little toddlers running around, they say, do they know they're adopted? I said, ask them if they're adopted. They're like, I said, ask them if they're adopted. You're adopted. Go, yeah, we're adopted. That's my mom and dad there. So I think it's really important. I don't know why that's such a challenge for some people. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not telling people what to do, but it's kind of like, you kept that a secret. What else are you keeping a secret from me? You know what I mean? It's things that just trust. It's just that's just the way we operate. I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong. Just
Sure.
a lot of disclaimers here,
Yeah, no, and and we, our kids obviously know, and I told them, it's like, look, God just brought you to our home in a different way.
Right, exactly.
We had 4 kids, and then there were 2 others in another part of the world that needed to come to our family.
Right.
And they are just as much mine as any of the other kids, right? And I think that's hard for people that haven't adopted, that those kids are really yours. They're part of your family, and I can't explain it. I just know that when my kids put their arms around me and vice versa, that we are connected. But they also have a story, from when they were very young, and they're very aware of that. And I've told them, anytime you want to go back to Haiti, I'm more than happy to go back with you. And at this stage, they haven't want to do that, and that's fine. I'm like, you know what, you have every opportunity in the world to become who you want, and your foundation is who you are as well.
Right.
And so you need to embrace the entire story of your life, and as much as I do as your dad, and I'm here for you 120%. And it's so fun. It's had its challenges, but it's had its bright points as well. And God's touched our family's life and brought us unity and love, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like every time there's an issue, like with one of my kids, like I'm talking to somebody about it, they always come back to, well, maybe it's because they're adopted, and I truly don't think that's a problem with them. They know they're adopted. It's not like they don't have an identity or anything, or they're trying to. They want to find their mother or something, or their father. I don't think that's a problem, to be honest with you. They've never said it was a problem to me, or my wife. We've asked them. I just don't see that being a problem.
So looking back, as you've brought these children into your home, and you and your wife have created a really strong family. Now, what are some things that you've learned through the process that you think would be helpful for other dads?
Just being honest. As honest you can be, and try not to keep any secrets. Like my family had lots of secrets. Don't tell anybody your dad's an alcoholic. Well, I think everybody knows. You know what I mean? I'm just like, it's just, and there were like a lot of secrets in our house. Now there are things I don't tell the kids, like, we're really short on money today. I don't know if I can pay this bill. I won't tell them that, but I'm just saying, as far as like stuff going on in the family, like my wife's having an issue. She went back to school when she was 52 to get her master's degree, and that was a challenge. She was working full time, and they weren't chipping in. And I said, look, you guys really need to help chip in here. Like not money wise, just chores around the house, because I can't do it all with everything. And so I think just honesty, and it's hard to be honest at times. We got a lot of stuff going on. I'm not using it as an excuse, but we all have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of drama, a lot of self-made drama. We try and have a drama-free house. Don't ask my daughter that, but it seems like she can find drama in the most common situation. But just being honest, to be honest with you, is what I have to say. And it's hard to do that sometimes, especially as a guy. It's you want my feelings, and I'm not really good at telling feelings, although I am working with that. It's really difficult, but I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times women and children may struggle with not hearing the words "I love you." And for some men, it is very difficult for them. And it goes back to a father wound or something, when the way they were raised as a kid. And a lot of men go, look, I'm working I'm working for you. I'm doing everything for you. That is the way I'm showing you I love you. And it's tough, right? Because we as men, we need to learn to open up our hearts.
Yeah, well, like that book, the love language book, mine is service. And my daughter says that sometimes, well, I don't think Dad loves me but she knows I do. But because he doesn't show, he doesn't hug, and I'm not a big touchy-feely type of guy, But I service, It was funny when she said that to my wife. My wife didn't say anything to me, and then I came downstairs and I went, "Oh well, let me check your air and your tires. Let me check your oil in your car." And my wife goes, as I was leaving, my wife goes, "See, that's what I mean by service. He's doing that because he loves you and he cares about you." Some people don't understand that, but that's just, I like serving people. That's the way I express my love. And yes, I do tell them I love them because I didn't get too much of that "I love you" stuff when I was growing up. So I try and I don't smother them with "I love yous," but I try, tell them I love you and I care for you and care about you, and you're driving me crazy, but I still love you, and stuff like
that. No, I love that, right? And and that's really the purpose of my podcast, right? I like having very real and authentic discussions because the reality is a lot of men really struggle with expressing what's in the very center of their heart. And a lot of times if they even begin to think about it, they're choking back a tear in their eye and in their heart, and you can hear the stumble in their voice, and they will revert to kind of kind of push it off. Right?
No.
And so it's hard, right? For some men it's really hard. And so I guess my counsel for those people that have that kind of dad, recognize that he is digging into you by the way he serves you,
right,
and pays attention to you. But we as dads, we need to break down that rough shell and go, you know what? I don't say it a lot, but I do love you.
Right. And it's okay to shed a tear. It's okay to cry. Like my dad never did that. It's just, it's okay to cry. Heck, I'm the first one to cry. I mean, whatever, it's just, you need to show emotions so your kids know it's okay to show emotions, because today a lot of people don't show emotions. They're so tied up in phones and all sorts of other things, like I am right next to me, but I'm just saying, people don't show emotions anymore. And there's some children don't have the parents to go to because they're so tied up in all this technology stuff. And I find myself getting stuck in that too sometimes. And it's, they need people that will show emotions and listen to them. And it's just, a lot of times it's not there. And it's really sad, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to visit with me. I love that you and your wife, made the conscious decision to be parents to children who didn't have parents, and the beauty that created in your home. You and your wife are the only ones that truly understand, but your kids understand it as well, and that will leave a legacy to you and your wife.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Jody. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on here, and also reaching out to me. I was shocked when you reached out and said, "Oh, I want to talk to you." I'm like, "What do I do now?" "Oh, okay, good, all right."
Yeah,
and thanks so much for always being a friend and everything like that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate our friendship, and we walk in similar circles, and the most important thing that I appreciate is that you're such a gentle, kind man. And, I'm sure your kids feel that. And I want to thank you for sharing some of your experience as a young man, as well as, as a father, and just appreciate you. So.
You bet. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yeah. Well, and you guys tuning in, thank you guys so much for joining the conversation. If you have a comment, please send it to me. I'd love to have you on the show and get your perspective. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we will check you same time, same bat channel just next week. See ya.
See ya.